Imagine a single name that brands you a traitor, a bloodline marked by the literal wrath of God. For generations, to be a child of Korah was to walk the ancient sands of Israel with a target on your back. Your grandfather was the man who led a rebellion against Moses, the man who watched the desert floor open like a mouth, swallowing his entire household alive into the abyss. But 3 men survived. They ran. They hid in the jagged, desolate caves of the Judean wilderness. They were outcasts among their own people, stateless, broken, and carrying a curse in their very veins. Yet, centuries later, it is this exact bloodline that would write the most radical, shocking, and universally inclusive poem in the ancient world. Today, we journey back through 3,000 years of dust, blood, and empires to uncover the masterpiece written by the sons of the damned, a text born in the shadow of total annihilation that rewrote the rules of who belongs to God. This is the hidden history of Psalm 87. To understand the gravity of Psalm 87, we must first look at the men holding the stylus. The text is attributed to the Sons of Korah. To the ancient Israelite ear, that name was chilling. Turn the clock back to the wandering of the wilderness. Numbers chapter 16. Korah, a prominent Levite, grows bitter. He gathers 250 prince leaders and challenges the authority of Moses and Aaron. He wants the priesthood. He wants the power. The judgment was swift and terrifying. The earth split. An entire family line was erased in an instant. Or so the ancient world thought. Deep within the genealogy of Numbers 26:11, a single startling sentence changes everything. Notwithstanding, the children of Korah died not. Imagine the psychological trauma of those surviving children. They did not participate in their father's sins, yet they inherited his shame. For centuries, they lived on the fringes of Israelite society. They were the descendants of the ultimate rebel. When they walked into a village, people whispered. When they approached the tabernacle, hands tightened on swords. They knew what it meant to be stateless. They knew what it meant to be excluded. But by the time of King David, a miraculous shift occurs. David, a man who knew what it was like to be hunted in the caves, looks at these outcasts and sees something different. He sees a desperate, burning loyalty. He appoints the sons of Korah to be the gatekeepers and musicians of the holy tent. From the dirt of the underworld to the steps of the sanctuary, this was their trajectory. And it is from this deep well of generational trauma and unexpected mercy that Psalm 87 is born. Every great piece of literature has a trigger, a moment where the physical reality becomes so intense, so dangerous, that prose fails and poetry becomes the only weapon left to survive. The historical consensus points to a specific, terrifying crisis for the creation of Psalm 87, the late 8th century BCE. The Assyrian Empire, the most ruthless military machine the ancient world had ever seen, is sweeping through the Levant like wildfire. Led by King Sennacherib, the Assyrians have already systematically destroyed the northern kingdom of Israel. 46 fortified cities of Judah have fallen. Smoke rises from the valleys. The air smells of ash and iron. Now they are at the gates of Jerusalem. The sons of Korah are standing on the stone walls of Zion. They look out into the Kidron Valley and see a sea of iron spears. Over 185,000 Assyrian soldiers have encircled the mountain. Inside the city, food is running low. water is rationed. The psychological warfare is intense. The Assyrian cupbearer stands outside the wall, shouting insults, telling the citizens that their God will abandon them, just like the gods of the other fallen nations. The people are terrified. The elite are packing their bags. The city is a pressure cooker of panic. But watch the Sons of Korah. They do not run. They have already survived the opening of the earth. They are not about to be intimidated by an empire. Surrounded by death, looking down at an invading army that wants to erase their culture from history, they strike the lyre. They begin to sing. Not a song of mourning, not a lamentation, but a defiant, cinematic anthem celebrating the absolute permanence of their fragile city. Let us break down the text as it was heard on those trembling walls. The psalm begins abruptly, like a sudden burst of confidence in a quiet room. He has founded his city on the holy mountain. The Lord loves the gates of Zion more than all the other dwellings of Jacob. Psalm 87, 1-2. Look closely at the geography. Jerusalem is built on Mount Zion. In ancient Near Eastern culture, mountains were seen as the pillars of heaven, the place where the divine met the earthly. But Zion wasn't the grandest mountain in the region. Mount Hermon to the north was far more majestic. Yet, the Sons of Korah use the word founded. In Hebrew, yatshad. It implies a deep, unshakable bedrock foundation. They are telling the terrified citizens, look down at the stones beneath your feet. This isn't just mud and water. The sovereign of the universe dug these foundations. The Assyrian battering rams cannot move what God has anchored. Then comes verse 3. Glorious things are spoken of you, O city of God. In the middle of a siege, when the enemy is speaking words of terror and destruction, the poets choose to hear a different narrative. They remind the people that the history of this city is tied to a promise larger than the present threat. But it is verse 4 where the script shifts from a patriotic war song into something completely unprecedented, something that would have shocked every conservative listener in ancient Judah. The narrator recites the words of God. I will record Rahab and Babylon among those who acknowledge me, Philistia too, and Tyre, along with Cush, and will say, this one was born in Zion. To a modern reader, these are just ancient names. To an ancient Israelite, this was a list of their most bitter, murderous enemies. Let us decode this hit list. First, Rahab. This is not the woman from Jericho. In ancient Hebrew literature, Rahab is the poetic, mythological nickname for Egypt. It represents the ancient oppressor, the empire that enslaved their ancestors for 400 years. Second, Babylon, the rising superpower to the east, the symbol of luxury, paganism, and cruel ambition. Third, Philistia, their immediate neighbors to the west, the tech-advanced, iron-wielding rivals who had fought Israel for generations, the people of Goliath. Fourth, Tyre, the wealthy merchant kingdom of the north, representing corporate greed and pagan compromise. Fifth, Cush, the distant kingdom of the Upper Nile, modern-day Sudan and Ethiopia, representing the absolute ends of the known earth. The Sons of Korah stand on the walls of a city currently being besieged by foreigners, and instead of singing for the destruction of foreigners, they declare that these very enemies will one day be registered as citizens of Jerusalem. Think about the radical empathy required here. The Sons of Korah, who knew what it was like to be treated as outsiders within their own nation, expand the borders of God's heart to include the worst enemies of their nation. They used the phrase, "This one was born in Zion." In the ancient world, citizenship was entirely based on your bloodline. If you weren't born of the correct tribe, you were a permanent alien. But here, God is portrayed as a cosmic registrar, opening the massive leather books of heaven, looking at an Egyptian, a Babylonian, a Philistine, and crossing out their place of birth. He dips his pen in ink and writes, "Born in Jerusalem." It is an ancient declaration of spiritual adoption. The outcasts are claiming that one day there will be no more outcasts. The poem rises to a crescendo in verses 5 and 6. Indeed, of Zion it will be said, "This one and that one were born in her, and the Most High himself will establish her. The Lord will write in the register of the peoples, this one was born in Zion." Notice the repetition, "this one and that one." In the original language, it implies an endless line of individuals. A massive, multi-ethnic queue stretching across the desert, waiting to receive their identity papers from the king. For the citizens of Jerusalem listening to this song during the Assyrian crisis, this was a profound psychological flip. They thought they were trapped. They thought they were the victims of history, waiting to be crushed by Sennacherib. But the Sons of Korah changed their perspective. They say, "We aren't a trap. We are the birthplace of the future world. This mountain isn't a tomb, it is a womb." Historically, we know how the crisis ended. According to the ancient accounts, a sudden plague struck the Assyrian camp overnight. Sennacherib woke up to find his army decimated without a single arrow being shot from the walls of Jerusalem. The siege was lifted. The empire retreated. The foundations held. The psalm ends with a beautiful, enigmatic image in verse 7. "As they make music, they will sing, 'All my springs are in you.'" The springs refer to the Gihon spring, the hidden underground water source that kept Jerusalem alive during the siege, while the enemy outside withered in the heat. It was the secret life support of the city. The Sons of Korah, the descendants of the men who almost perished in the dry, cracked earth of the wilderness, end their masterpiece by singing about water, about life, about refreshment. 3,000 years have passed since the Assyrian army surrounded that rocky hill in Judea. The Assyrian Empire is gone, buried under the sands of Iraq. Babylon is an archaeological ruin. The walls of ancient Jerusalem have been torn down and rebuilt a dozen times. But the words, written by the sons of the damned, survive. Psalm 87 remains a timeless monument for anyone who has ever felt like an outsider. It reminds us that your past, your family trauma, or the labels society places on you do not dictate your place in the story of God. In a world that loves to draw borders, build walls, and decide who is in and who is out, this ancient song stands as a defiant reminder. The architecture of hope is always larger than the geography of fear. And to those who feel stateless, broken, or forgotten, the ancient register still stands open. Your name can be written there too.